So today we're talking about being intentional and taking action. So what changes are you seeking to make? And I realize that action actually can fuel us to do better work and be better people. And it's action that matters, right? So be sure to stay to the end of the video to find out and learn what shifts you need to make to become the person you want to be as it relates to being more intentional and how to develop the habit of doing those daily activities. So Glenn, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me back, Genese.
And just before we get into the topic, I'm sure our first-time viewers would love to know who you are. So just let me take a time just to give a quick introduction, all right? So Glenn is a financial advisor as well as an infinite banking practitioner who offers unbiased, I must say, financial advice. And he also offers services that are customized to your specific needs. We have been discussing a wide variety of topics related to insurance and financial education, which are posted weekly. So feel free to check our financial dream building playlist to find a topic that's relevant to you. So Glenn, now we can get into the meat of the matter now that we have gotten your introduction out of the way. So what I want to start with, Glenn, is what shifts can we tell our viewers that they need to make to become a person that they want to be as it relates to being more intentional?
Well, I mean, the word you just used right there says it all, intentional, right? A lot of times we can sit there and say, you know, I would like for this to happen.
Right.
I wish this could happen. It would be nice if this happened. Changing up the wording though, because, you know, the biggest thing, Genese, is tricking our own brains, right? It's tricking our own brains. You know, it's saying, you know what? By March 31st, I have to have this done. That's a whole different conversation, right? Because you're not saying it would be nice, you're saying I have to have this done, and you've given yourself a timeline, right? So three main things: write it down, make it specific as far as timeline goes, and the one that's the toughest part, share it with an accountability partner. Because you writing it down is great. You can see it repetitively. You should look at it daily. Putting a timeline definitely helps give you, you know, your runway. This is how long I have. But when you share with an accountability partner, now they can come back and go, hey, how are you doing on this? And it's uncomfortable. Generally, you don't like it, but that is one of the surest ways to keep you on track.
And, you know, as you talk about writing it down, having an accountability partner, but, you know, I'm thinking that some persons may be saying to themselves, man, that's a lot of stress. Like, how do you deal with that kind of conversation and feedback when people are saying, I don't want to do all of that. That's too stressful. I don't want to do that. I just want to just go with the flow and do what I need to do.
You know, Genese, and that happens quite a bit. But at the end of the day, it's outcomes. What kind of outcomes do you want, right? I want to be in better shape. Is it going to happen if I don't do anything specific? Not going to happen. In fact, it's going to go the other way around. Do we want, it's easier to go with the flow, but going with the flow, especially if you're in water, for those of us who've ever done this in water, open water, the tide's going to push you wherever it chooses, unless you swim to where you want to go. And that's life as well, right? Yeah. So is there going to be work? Definitely. Could it be stressful, especially in the beginning? Definitely. Especially if it's something you're not used to, it's going to be stressful. But you know what's great? Once you start moving along the path, having a feeling of control, having a feeling of purpose when you wake up in the morning, right? You know, I listened to a bunch of different motivational speakers, and Steve Harvey had one video where he says, one guy says, oh, I have to go to this job. Oh, I got to go take the bus. And he's like, thank you, God, that I get to go to work today.
Right.
Thank you that I get to take the bus, because I could have no job and nowhere to go, right? It's really tricking our minds and using those words that I get to instead of I have to. Right. And another big thing, I'll go right back to it. At the end of the day, when you have something like that, an accountability partner, you wake up already with something to do.
Right.
And initially, you're right, it might be a little stressful, but once you get going, I promise you that you're going to start looking forward to some of these things, especially when you do project progress checks.
Right.
and see that you're getting closer, or if it's a goal that requires a few steps, you've knocked a few things off, that just energizes you, right? And at that point, it's going to be anything but, oh, this is too stressful. It's going to be like, oh, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Okay. So, but to have that happen, you have to start. Otherwise, just picture being in an inner tube on open water. You're going to end up wherever the tide takes you. And to get to where you want to get, you're going to have to do more work in the end than it would have been if you'd done it from the beginning.
So you're saying then, even if I'm just doing one action step every day, that's counted then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's okay with you. That's one action step. I mean, for people who get flustered, and they may think doing too much action at one time. So what I'm hearing from you, as long as they're moving forward, even if it's just one action step every single day,
Progress.
That should be okay. Progress.
Progress.
I
Progress
like that.
over perfection. Right? I don't remember where I heard that, but I've heard it several times over. Progress over perfection. Right? If you keep doing things regularly, then guess what? They become less stressful. It becomes routine. Your body is just kind of used to it. If you don't, every time you got to start and stop, it's still like, it's like a car. And it's like that rocket. Every time we look at a rocket launch, you think of how much energy is required for that rocket just to get off the pad, right? But once it gets going up into the atmosphere, you see those boosters break off. It doesn't need as much energy. It's got so much momentum. It's going to be the same with anything else. The beginning is the hardest because it requires a different path or a more consistent path, depending on what you've been doing. Typically different habits though, and it requires you to do them and track them. But once you get going, it becomes easier, right?
Perfect.
And it's not that the tasks are easier, although most times they will be. It's that you become so engaged, so focused on it, that you start looking forward to it more, right? So really, it's get going.
And I know my viewers, they love to take notes. So, I mean, if you're taking notes, just remember you can write this down too. Don't judge the action, right? As Glenn said, not perfection. So I'm getting from that, don't judge the action or that immediate results, right? Just be patient with yourself. And I always hear not to be too attached to your results. So as he said, write it down, be specific, daily intentional action. But Glenn, before I move on to the next point, I would like to ask my viewers, have you subscribed to this channel as yet? So just make sure to hit that red subscribe button and just turn on your notification bell so that you can be the first to be notified of our new upload. So Glenn, can you tell me, how would you suggest that people move along this way and measure or keep track of what's going on? How would they do that?
Okay, so there's a few major areas in life, right? There's finances, which we invariably come back to, right? There's health and there's relationships. So I'm going to use me as an example of where I've fallen off in the last few months, right? There's been some relationships where I look at it and I go, oh, I haven't talked to so-and-so. Oh my God, it's been months. Okay, no. So what I started doing a few days ago, I started calendaring, call this person, call that, because at the end of the day, we get busy, we get going, and whatever is not written down in most cases is not going to happen.
Okay.
Right? It can be something as simple as that. Make the intent, and by doing so, you stick it in a place you're going to see. So you remember, I need to do this, because we all get busy.
Of course.
Things come up and time just keeps on rolling. And whether that's, give you an example, another example is, okay, maybe I'll take the stairs more. I don't have occasion to use a lot of stairs. I'm like, maybe I'll take the stairs more, especially if I go in a building for, say, like work or something, as opposed to the elevator. Now, I'm not doing 10 floors, okay? I'm gonna tell you guys that right off the bat. But if I'm going up a couple of floors, it's a difference, right? It's a difference for a couple of floors. So try to do that more. It's just being intentional, saying, I'm going to do this. So then it becomes, your body starts anticipating certain moves, as opposed to just, well, would it be nice if this happened? Or, yeah, I'd like to go on this trip. It would be nice to go to Mexico. You haven't looked up Mexico. You haven't found out what it costs to go. You haven't checked to see when you have vacation, what flights are looking like, what hotels there are. You haven't said, you know what, let me put aside some money toward this. There's a few steps in there. And if you don't do any of those, it's not happening, right? That's just one of those tangible results. If you don't do any of those, it's not happening. Now, if you said, you know what, I have vacation in 6 months and I got a couple of weeks, maybe I want to go for a week. Okay, what does it cost to go to Mexico for a week? Okay, what kind of resorts are there? Okay, I know what I'm looking at. How long do I have? In order to cover that, how much would I need to put aside from now till that point? So you've got about 4 or 5 steps in there, right? But it's all about being intentional, because you said my holidays are at this date, so I have a fixed time. Okay, I look at resorts I'd like to go to. I see a range of costs, so we'll call it a fixed cost. And then within that time period, I know what I need to do to make sure this becomes a reality, as opposed to, man, it would be nice to do.
Okay, makes sense. And what do you think spark most people to take action, or what do you think hold them back?
Holding back. Typically, again, not having a path, not being, as we said at the beginning, not being intentional, right? It would be nice, or man, I wish this could happen, as opposed to, you know what? We're going to, right? That's a whole different conversation, right? So that is the first thing, is being intentional, and then the action steps toward that goal. Write it down first. Accountability partner, right? Especially if, and again, I keep using Mexico. If you're thinking of going to Mexico, and maybe, you're like, okay, my family and Genese's family are going to go to Mexico. Now, if you've got somebody else in there and you've got a specific timeline, you're really locked in, because that becomes your accountability partner. And now people are excited together. They're looking forward to being there with you. So you better get your butt in gear to make this happen, because now you've expanded that outside yourself, right? You've engaged an accountability partner, and you've expanded it outside yourself. And that's another thing. With some things, it is good if they can be expanded outside of you for the results, and sometimes for help along the journey. So then that way, yes, it's good pressure. I know sometimes people say, oh, that's a lot of, it's good pressure. It's something good. It's a goal that you want. So you're going to be intentional, and it's going to not just be good for you, but for whoever else you're going to have involved, right?
Yeah. And another thing I hear that's really a good motivator for a lot of people is their why. I've always heard that it's always good to have a good why. For whatever you're doing, if you have a good why, it's a good motivator that will really get you going. So I just thought I'd just add that one to it, right? And I just also, you mentioned about they not setting a time. So I wanted to also remind people, instead of saying later, just do it now, because most time later never comes, right? So it's just important to take action right away. Just commit yourself that you're going to take action, and then you're going to make it happen. And then you just make that plan and you follow through with the plan, and just keep doing things you really want, you commit to doing. So, if you want to type in the comment below what it's like for you when you've made a commitment, what are some of the stuff that hold you back, and what are the things that spark you? And I'd like to hear from you also. What are your big whys? What are the things that really keep you committed? Because I've always been told that commitment really don't care how you feel, because once you've committed to something, you're going to do it anyway. Right? I don't know if you ever heard that comment before. I see you shaking your head, Glenn. You've heard that before, right?
Several times. I heard it referred to actually about marriage. It said, hey, things aren't going good. I don't want to do this. Did you decide to attend a feeling, or did you make a commitment? Okay. Right. You make a commitment. Well, then since you make a commitment, then you're going to have to figure that out. Right. You're right. Being committed is huge. And Genese, I don't want to gloss over the why, because the why is huge. Okay. The why is, look, stuff's going to happen. We know that. That's life. If you don't have a strong enough why, you're going to be, you know what, forget this. This is not worth it. Right. If the why is, I'll tell you guys how I look at, I'll give you an example of myself. Right. I like being in Jamaica on Mother's Day. I like being in Jamaica on Mother's Day to go hang out with my mother and my mother-in-law, right? So my wife and the family would generally get them together. What I look forward to is looking around and seeing everybody together, just having fun chatting. I don't care where we are, right? And we generally do a restaurant, it's secondary. I don't care where we are, but what is my why is seeing our moms, us, our our children and siblings, and seeing at least 3 generations interacting together in something that is not a regular thing. That
Right.
is a huge why for me, right? And marking those moments, because not only is it good for the generation before me, but to see my children interact with their grandparents, it is huge. So that is a huge, huge why for me as to why I do things, why I get them done, and why that is on my calendar to say, this is what we're going to do, right? And when
Perfect.
stuff happens, you run into roadblocks, things go completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I sit back and what I've done is to, you got pictures and videos of before. I go back and look at them, and that invariably takes your mind off whatever is not going right, refocuses you, which is important, which is why it's good to have things written down or pictures.
Yes.
And then I'm like, okay, getting closer. This has been a crappy day, but I'm looking forward to another day like this ahead of me. So let me
Right.
get back on track.
Yes. So I think we've said quite a lot on this topic in terms of being intentional, taking action. But what we just want to reinforce is that whatever you've commit to, whatever you've set your goals to, remember to write them down and commit to doing it. Take action and take the action now. We're so glad you could join us. It's been a pleasure having you viewing us today. Make sure to press that thumbs up button whenever you get a chance, and subscribe. And it's just wonderful having you here, and we will see you in the next video.
And before we run, Genese, I just want to say again, yes, please subscribe. Definitely subscribe, but also comment, because while we have ideas and we mention things, we're also smart enough to realize we're nowhere near close to having all the answers or a bunch of answers on things.
Exactly.
So we would love to hear your feedback, because invariably you're going to mention something that we haven't, that would probably help a bunch of other people, right? So definitely want to hear from you. Comment, let us know what you think, what we could have added, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks for adding that, Glenn. Yeah, because the comments are so important to us, and we'd love to hear from you.
Excellent.